Hi everybody, Ray Hayden here, and this video is going to be about changing another sink faucet. This one here is going to be in our kitchen, and I've already done some disconnection and removal of parts from below, but everything else looks the same on the top. And let's come over here and take a look at what we got going on. I'm going to try to adjust this light a little bit to make it so we can see what's going on. All right, so what I've done is we have a 3-hole sink in the kitchen. So the kitchen sink has 3 sinks, center sink 2, like I consider a wash and dry. My wife uses this one here for washing, and this one as well. And then of course we are dryer, we are the dishwasher, and that kind of thing. We also have a couple of neat things that we picked up as well, and these are drop-in stoppers. All right, so we drop it in, you push down on it, and it stops the water from leaving the sink. Push it again, it pops up and allows the water to drain out. We like these because the cats kind of pick and pull at things and make a lot of noise. And we don't like that when we're trying to sleep. All right, so first things first is I've disconnected this hose. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. And I'm going to want to discuss this hose for a second. All right. I didn't disconnect the drain. If I'm doing any kind of drain replacement or something like that, then that becomes an issue. So I would have to watch out for that. But what I did is I did put a bucket below. All right, and this catches the water. It's actually a kitty litter bucket, and we use it for these kind of situations where we can take things apart. Now I've already disconnected the sink too, so I can lift this out. Hopefully, all right. I need a little bit of there we go, finessing to get this out. All right. Now these are the actual connections to the hot and the cold water down here, and these are separate tubes or wire or cables, whatever, hoses that I had purchased separately from the sink faucet thing. And you see we had some corrosion and stuff up in here. I don't know how well you're going to see that, but you can definitely see some discoloration on this piece, probably around that, and that's just not right. So there's some things I'm going to do up here to clean this up. All right, jumping back into the recording here. This is remember the hose I pulled out of there. This is the other part of the hose. I couldn't disconnect this. It was too difficult for me to disconnect from this pipe. I don't remember how it snapped on, and I don't remember how you take it off. So basically I decided I would just cut that. It's kind of like a plastic tube, and what I did is I use these tools here, and this is for cutting PVC pipe. I do a lot of work with PVC. Oddly enough, not to make it a pipe, but to go ahead and do other projects with PVC. I should probably make some videos about those. But so basically you just put whatever you want to cut in there, and you just keep pulling and pulling and pulling, and then eventually you'll cut through, and lo and behold, that thing came apart like nobody's business, right? So then I'll just go ahead and put this tool away. And then the other thing, I didn't really need them, but I have a couple of flathead screwdrivers, right? And then the instructions for this one here were nice enough to say use a cross or a Phillips head, right? So use the cross, the X, the one that's shaped like an X. And I didn't know which size I'd use. I probably need the smaller size, but I've already done what I needed to do as far as taking something apart with that. Okay, I've done some cleaning and things of that nature, and I have this little piece I'm about to install, but I want to touch on a couple of things first. This is a faucet. Faucet has water. Below our sinks, we have those valves to turn off the water. Now in a kitchen sink, you might have additional valves that go somewhere else. Hot water would probably go to a dishwasher, and cold water might go to your refrigerator to make ice cubes or chill the water up a little bit and stuff like that. I just want to make the notes about this up here. I've taken these things out now, removed everything that had water going through it and everything, made sure everything below the sink is nice and dry and all that. Our drain system, we dump water in these sinks all day long. The drain system's never been disconnected for this project, so that's not a thing. So water can still go down these holes, and that's perfectly fine because the drains are still connected. But for everything else, we got to make sure everything's dry, cleaned up before we put new things on, and then we got to make sure that everything's good to go. Everybody back. I had to take a little break, check a phone call, do some additional cleaning and stuff like that. I just want to just make sure here that we stay on focus with what we're doing with the sink. Is the very first thing we got to do is make sure that we got our safety equipment. I've got my reading glasses. If I need to see something up close first, I got my safety glasses wherever I'm underneath the sink looking up, or if I'm dealing with something that might cause a hazard to my eye, always wear your eye protection. I don't need any hearing protection. I'm not screaming that much on this one. And then the other aspects is to keep things clean, right? So keep things dry and clean. It's very, very important because underneath our sink is going to be dark and we don't want it to be wet because dark and wet equals mold potentially, and we do not want that in any way, shape, or form. We also don't want water under our sink destroying our cabinets or the walls behind it or anything like that. I went ahead and I cleaned this surface up here where there's 3 holes here and a 4th hole back here. And I want to mention something about that. When we first bought the house, it didn't have a sprayer, but it had a soap dispenser thing back here. And it had one of these little toppers sticking up, and the bottle cap to a thing went on there, to a thing that you just pump it to get soap up and everything. That seemed like a real hassle to us. We didn't like it. So we put a blank in there. All right, and that's what this thing here is I brought up, and it's a blank, and this thing here very well matches our sink. It's brushed nickel, they say, and I'm going to take them at their word for it, but I'm going to take this part off, and what we do is like everything else with the sink, we go from below, just make sure this thing's tight. Usually they might have a little screw slot in there or the X for the Phillips head, but I'm just going to drop this in there, make sure I got the fit and finish, and make sure there's lines on there. And you can see the lines of which way they're going and stuff. So I just want to make sure that those are lined up. And now I'm going to take a little break, jump underneath the sink. There's no reason for you to watch all that. Basically, I'm just going to put this over that screw, take the wing nut, take this wing nut, and then screw it up tight, and then that should be a nice tight connection on there. All right, fun fact about sinks, right? So we're looking at the sink and we're looking at this stuff here, and it's right here. We can reach it and everything's great. But what we may fail to realize until we're working on it is that that's actually a big bump down, all right? So we got to reach up, under, and around. And fortunately, this sink is not as deep as these other 2. There's 2 other sinks here. I don't know if you can see them all. There we go. So we got 1, 2, 3. And so this one here is not as deep, so and it's got space between them, so I'm not like reaching way up and behind all the way to the wall. But for this kind of piece right here, I sort of kind of was. Now this goes right down the center of the pipe, but hold it, hang on a second. If there was a single hole, that would be great, but there's not. There's 3 holes here across, so we need another device that they thankfully sent to us in here. I'll just place this on the box for now. But this part of it has a soft washer there, right, that lines up with this, because we're going to be tightening this up from below, and this is going to need to kind of sit there nice and tight on that. And when it sinks down, this is going to help keep water from getting underneath the sink. Because if we put this in without this, well, then there's really nothing to prevent water from osmosis and getting sucked up underneath this thing. So we don't want that. So we're going to put our little washer on there and then place that over that center hole. And then we're going to try to sink this stuff down. Now, really the only thing I know about this particular pipe is that the on-off switch and everything else seems to be, the lever seems to be on the right-hand side. And I can turn it out of the way this way here. Okay, so I'll just put in the longest hose first, right? Make sure we're getting this on video. Then I'll put those 2 through, and then this other part goes in last. All right, thankfully that all sank in nice. Now this part here I'm going to put over here, and hopefully that'll hold it steady while I'm underneath putting on the connection to hold it all in place, all right? So I'll just make sure that this pipe here is centered from below, and then I have to mount on 3 pieces, and these 3 pieces are like so. So the first things first, what we want to put on there is a nice rubber washer that also to help, keeps a nice tight seal. This is a metal ring so we can have a way to push up on this. And this is the screw that holds this whole thing down. And a lot of times that would really kind of be enough. But what it is, once we get this thing here nice and tight on the bottom, then we turn these screws, then we turn the screws. Then we turn these screws and they raise up to put pressure on the washers, on the two washers, the metal one and the rubber one, to help make that a nice tight fit underneath. All of this is to help keep water from getting in from below. All right, so I am once again going to take a mandatory break from the video while I put these on, because once again, nobody needs to hear that. All right, so I'll be back in a minute once I get all this on, and we'll see where we're at from there. All right, so the connection of the faucet to the top of the sink was pretty darn easy. As a matter of fact, that brass screw underneath, and plus the fact that the hoses and stuff go through the top there, and they hang out below on the bottom, that allows me to actually reach up there and I grab the hoses in my hand. So the hoses would be like the red part here, and they kind of hang down. And then with my fingers, I could put the brass nut onto the hoses. And I could also hold on to, all this in one hand, holding on to it, holding onto the hoses, pulling everything down, and spinning that up onto the large threaded part below the sink. The next thing I'm going to do is, because this thing is just going to dangle there, and that's not really good, we're going to put on the counterweight that goes below the counter. All right, that connection was pretty good, and I just basically tightened it up. Not too tight, just like kind of finger tight. By the way, all my connections are like tight and then finger tight. Even though I'm using a screwdriver or something to make a connection, I really only want to go finger tight. I just want it to be nice and tight and everything else, and everything's locked down, but I don't want to over tighten it and mess it up. And remember, I'm the guy who's going to have to pull it out and replace it after we destroy this one too, right? When we connect this hose, right? When we connect this hose to its supply line underneath, there's going to be a loop at the bottom. You want that weight to be on this side of the hose, not that side of the hose. What I mean is, you don't want it to be, this is the line for this hose, right? It goes up and straight down and hangs down below the sink. You don't want that weight to be at the bottom of that loop, because if it is, then it doesn't weigh as much, because the other side of the loop is giving some restriction to that. And what's going to happen is, you're not going to get like kind of the snapback thing that you would hope. Now, as you may have seen some water kind of bounce out of that, I did test it to turn it on, because I made the connections for hot and cold water, because I was happy with everything else. The water turns on this way. All right. And we got a nice little thing. Now this reaches over to all three sinks. Yeah, that's kind of a thing for me. Is like, I need this water thing to fit into the three sinks. I need to be able to reach every aspect of that. So, what's the deal, right? The other thing is, this is a sprayer, right? So you're pulling the sprayer out, and it's like, well, that's kind of crazier, because that's your water. Well, that's a sprayer, right? If you use this part here, you're just filling something up. So if you need to reach over and fill something up, well, you can do that. But if you want to spray, you got your pressure sprayer there. Kind of like a pen, it's kind of neat. And this is on a little ball. There's a ball in there and a thing. So this may wear out in time or anything else, but it looks really neat. It looks nice. It looks better than our old one that I removed. And it's just, it's just kind of cool. I like the way you turn it on. Just pull it out. Hot water is pull it forward. So pull it forward for hot. Just make sure hot water is coming out. It is. And push it backwards for the cold water. Indeed it is. And everything's cool. Everything's fine and dandy. That's great. So you can move this front and back, like a throttle on an airplane or something like that, and it doesn't do anything. It's only when you push it away, and it's got a little carve out down here for it to curve out, and that'll get the water running. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call this one here a success. And I make a mess with water, so I like to try to keep it nice and clean and dry. We don't want any moisture under the sink. And I just want to wrap this up with one more thing. I'm gonna grab an item out of here. And it's paper towels. What my wife, Misdemeanor, and I do every time I do any kind of work on wet stuff, faucets, bathtubs, anything like that, anything that might have a leak, we do a leak test. First off, I do an instant leak test, and I'll take a paper towel. This has locks on them so the cats don't get under there. And I'll put this underneath where things that I've been working on are. I expect that to pick up some kind of drops and drips and everything that I missed. And that's fine, that's okay. But it's going to be a lot easier for me to see a wet spot on a white paper towel underneath the sink. And I see a couple of them I did instantly. And I expect to see some more. But then I just check everything out that I touched, every connection, everything else. Check everything out to make sure there's no water dripping or dropping from anywhere under there. And then I'll come back through, re-dry it all again, and then I'll take a new set of paper towels on there. And I will keep this under there for a number of days, if not a week, to make sure that I've got everything tightened up, locked down, and everything else, so we don't have any issues with drips underneath the sinks. And again, this is 3 sinks. 1 sink is one thing, 2 sinks is another problem. 3 sinks is three times the effort to make sure that there's no leaks under there. Because the leaks, any leaks that we might have or that you might have in your house, might not have anything to do with the faucet, the water supply, or anything else. It might be with the drainage of the sink or any other connections. The more connections we have, and we have too many connections under the sink as it is, any connection that we have is yet another possibility for a leak. So we have to watch out for that. So that's going to wrap it up for this one here. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like the video. Don't forget to make that comment below. Let me know you came by to say hi. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate the growth on the network. Until I catch you in the next video, take care and be well.